Welcome to Moonlit Stories, where moonlight meets myth. Love timeless tales? Then grab a glass of wine, sit back, and let's give you some juicy gist. Don't forget to leave a comment, hit like, subscribe, and join the circle, because here, every story begins with you. Annabel stood still at the top of the marble staircase, her dress heavy with silence. The ceremony was over. The guests had already left, whispering behind fans, blinking into phone screens, typing fast with painted fingers. The new bride, the Nigerian girl, the sixth one. She didn't need anyone to say it to her face. She saw it in their eyes. Women with tight smiles, men with soft pity. No one expected her to last. A maid bowed and gestured toward a long hallway. "Your room, madam." Annabel nodded and followed, her footsteps quiet on the polished floor. The mansion was too clean, too quiet, the kind of place where people vanish without noise. She'd read the articles, just like everyone else. 5 wives before her. One ran into traffic. One was found sobbing in a bus station. One just disappeared. They called him fragile, dying. A shame for such a powerful heir. But no one ever dared question Jehun's place at the top. Annabel reached her room. Not their room, her room. On the bed was a sealed envelope with her name written in delicate, expensive pen strokes. She opened it. "Annabel, let's not waste each other's time. The papers will be ready by morning. Sleep well. Jehun." She read it twice, then laughed softly. Not loud. The walls might have ears. A divorce, just like that. She sat on the edge of the bed, shoes still on. The room smelled faintly of roses, like something meant to distract. This wasn't romance. This wasn't even marriage. She was a shield, nothing more, a public story to cover a deeper game. Annabel took off her earrings, slowly, and placed them beside the note. She didn't cry. That part of her had dried up a long time ago. Let them think she was foolish. Let them whisper. She didn't come to this mansion blind. She came to see what happened to the other 5. She came to survive. A knock at the door. Another maid, younger, eyes darting. "Ma'am, if you want to live long in this house, don't speak unless spoken to. And don't drink anything unless you poured it yourself." The girl bowed and left quickly, not waiting for a reply. Annabel sat very still. Sixth wife or not, this wasn't a home. It was a battlefield, and she had just stepped onto the first square. Annabel didn't sleep. Not because she couldn't. The room was too perfect, the sheets untouched, the silence too deep, but because she didn't trust the house to let her. Around 2 a.m., she heard footsteps. Not hurried, not soft. Measured. Confident. Whoever it was, they weren't hiding. She didn't move. Just listened. The steps paused outside her door. A short knock. Once. "Come in," she said, her voice steady. The door opened slowly. Jehun stood there in a gray robe, hair still damp from a shower. Up close, he didn't look sick. His skin wasn't pale. His shoulders weren't weak. His eyes, dark and alert, settled on her without a flicker of warmth. "I just came to be clear," he said. "This isn't personal." She raised an eyebrow. The letter already said that. He walked into the room and stood by the window. Not looking at her, just the city beyond the glass. "You'll get a settlement. Enough to disappear and never think about this again." Annabel watched him carefully. "You know what people call me, don't you?" "The sixth wife," he said, smirking faintly. "Yeah, I hear things. You know what they call the last one?" He didn't answer. Annabel stood, crossing her arms. She called a cab from the mansion gate barefoot, crying and screaming that there were voices in the walls. Nobody's seen her since. Jehun turned to her then. Something cold flickered across his face. "Don't believe everything you hear. And don't start acting like you're different." "I'm not," she said. "I'm just not afraid. Everyone starts brave," he muttered. He stepped closer, not threatening but deliberate. His gaze searched hers, waiting for her to flinch. She didn't. "You're not sick," she said quietly. Silence. Then a slow smile crept onto his face, not warm, not amused. The kind of smile that doesn't touch the eyes. "So you saw something?" "I saw enough." His smile disappeared. "Then listen carefully," he said, voice low. "If you want to leave this house with your mind intact, you'll forget what you saw. Don't ask questions. Don't play games. And if I don't, his eyes hardened, then I won't just divorce you. I'll bury you. They stared at each other in silence. Then Jehun turned and walked out of the room without another word. Annabel sat down again, heartbeat calm, mind racing. So it was true. He was hiding something, and he knew she knew. She hadn't come for a love story. She came to play a role. Now the mask was off, the real game had begun. And Jehun, he wasn't a dying heir. He was a hunter pretending to limp. She wouldn't run. She would learn to walk beside him or outrun him. Annabel waited until the hallway went quiet. She had counted the footsteps, Jehun's retreat, the slow creak of the outer door, then silence. No lock clicked, but she knew he wouldn't come back. Not tonight. Still, she didn't sleep. Her mind kept turning. Every word Jehun had spoken replaying in a loop. The warning, the challenge, the threat. She rose, barefoot, careful not to make a sound. She opened the door slowly. The hall stretched out, empty, lit by soft amber wall lights that didn't flicker. Everything about the house whispered control. She walked, not like she was sneaking, just moving with purpose, like someone who belonged. The rooms she passed were all shut tight. The air smelled of jasmine and wood polish. A clock ticked somewhere, slow and steady. She reached a wide corner and stopped. There he was, Jehun, not coughing, not pale, not in bed. He was in the private gym. She hadn't seen it earlier. The room was tucked between two staircases, hidden behind frosted glass. Annabel stood behind a carved divider and watched. Jehun moved like a soldier. Clean, fast motions. He was training, push-ups, pull-ups, shadowboxing, his robe gone. Shirtless, sweat gleaming on his skin. His body was strong, sharp, built like someone who hadn't been sick a single day in his life. So it was all an act. The weakness, the wheezing, the thin voice, every bit of it had been performance. He stopped suddenly, as if he sensed something. Turned, looked toward the divider. Annabel didn't flinch. She stepped out. Their eyes met through the glass. For a second, no one moved. Then Jehun walked to the door of the gym, opened it slowly, and leaned against the frame. "You just don't listen, do you?" he said, breath steady. Annabel crossed her arms. "I'm curious by nature. Curiosity gets you killed in this house. So does pretending to be sick." His mouth tightened. He didn't look amused this time. He stepped closer, gaze narrowing. "I told you once, keep your eyes shut and your mouth closed. And I told you I'm not afraid." Jehun stared at her for a long moment. Then, with no warning, he reached behind her and shut off the hallway light. Darkness. She stood still. He leaned in, voice low near her ear. "Then start acting like you want to stay alive." He stepped away, just as quickly, turned, and disappeared down another hall, leaving her alone. Annabel let out the breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. She'd seen what she needed to see. Jehun wasn't sick. And this house, it didn't need poison to kill you. It used silence, secrets, and smiles. The next morning, Annabel woke to a quiet knock on the door. Not Jehun. Too light. Too polite. She opened it to find a smiling maid holding a silver tray. "Good morning, madam," the girl said with a bow. "Breakfast in bed?" The young master requested it. Annabel blinked at the tray. Rice porridge, boiled eggs, fruit slices cut into flower shapes, and a teacup full to the rim with something dark and sweet-smelling. "Thank you," Annabel said, stepping aside. The girl entered, still smiling, and placed the tray neatly on the bed. "If you need anything, just press the bell. We're always here to serve." She bowed again and turned to leave, but at the door she paused. Her voice dropped. "You should drink the tea while it's hot." Annabel tilted her head. "Why?" The girl's smile froze for a second. "Because it helps with obedience. Makes everything easier." Their eyes locked. Then the girl walked away like nothing strange had been said at all. Annabel shut the door quietly. She sat down and looked at the tray. "Obedience tea," she whispered. She didn't touch it. Instead, she took the teacup to the bathroom, poured a few drops onto a tissue and waited. The white paper turned faintly pink. Something was definitely in it. She flushed the rest and returned to the bed. So this was how the other wives started to break. It wasn't just whispers and fear, it was inside their food. Inside their cups, She dressed and headed downstairs. The house was busy now, too busy. Staff moved like dancers, silent but watching. Everyone smiled. Everyone bowed. But Annabel could feel the looks behind her back. In the dining hall, Aunt Mayan sat at the head of the table, her posture graceful, lips painted deep red. "Good morning, Annabel," she said sweetly. "I trust the tea reached you?" Annabel gave her a smooth smile. "It did. Thank you. It was unforgettable." Aunt Mayan's eyes narrowed for half a second. Then the smile returned. "It's a tradition in this house. A calming blend. Good for the nerves." Annabel sat across from her and poured herself plain water from a carafe. "My nerves are just fine," she replied. A tense pause stretched between them. Then Jahan entered, clean suit, quiet shoes, unreadable face. He glanced once at Annabel, once at the untouched tea. He said nothing, but his eyes lingered a little longer than usual. Annabel met his gaze calmly. Let them all smile. Let them all pretend. But she had seen Jahan's real face in the dark. And now she was beginning to see the houses, too. Annabel wasn't surprised when Jahan disappeared again after breakfast. He was a master of vanishing, 1 minute beside you, the next behind some locked door with cameras watching every move. She didn't chase him. She didn't ask questions. She already knew the answers would cost her. So she explored instead. The mansion was a maze of mirrors and corridors. Everything was polished to perfection. Yet no matter how far she walked, it felt like she wasn't going anywhere. Like someone had designed it to confuse, trap, muffle. In the late afternoon, a maid found her. Not the quiet girl from before, this one was older, with a tight bun and a stiff smile. "Madam Annabel," she said, bowing. "Lady Mayan requests your presence in the garden house." Garden house. Annabel followed her through a narrow path behind the east wing. There, tucked between trimmed hedges and koi ponds, was a small building, modern, glass walls, too clean for comfort. Inside sat Aunt Mayan, legs crossed, a teacup in one hand and a small black envelope in the other. She didn't look up right away. "You've adjusted quickly," Mayan said finally. "Very few girls make it past their first week here." "I don't scare easy," Annabel replied. Mayan's smile curved slowly. "I've noticed." She gestured to the chair across from her. Annabel sat without hesitation. The maid who had guided her vanished like smoke. "I want to speak plainly," Mayan said, placing the envelope on the table between them. "You've already seen things you weren't meant to see. That puts you in danger." "I've always been in danger," Annabel replied. "Then I'll offer you safety." Annabel said nothing. Mayan tapped the envelope. 500,001. Quietly transferred. No questions. No trace. Annabel waited. Mayan's smile flattened. "All you have to do is give Jahan 1 drop of something before bed each night. A liquid. Tasteless. Slow. He'll get weaker. He'll pass peacefully in his sleep. No blood. No scandal. No suspicion." Annabel raised an eyebrow. "And then what?" "You'll get your share of the inheritance. You'll disappear. We'll all pretend you were never the 6th. Annabel leaned back, hands in her lap. "You've done this before." Mayan's eyes didn't flicker. "You're smarter than the others. You'll do what's necessary." Annabel stared at the envelope, then at the woman across from her. "I'll think about it." Mayan smiled. "No rush. Just don't wait too long. The house has a habit of deciding things for people who hesitate." Later, in her room, Annabel opened the envelope. It wasn't just money. There was a small vial inside. Clear liquid. Harmless looking. She placed it on the table and stared at it for a long time. This wasn't just poison for Jahan. It was bait for her soul. And now the game wasn't just survival. It was war. That night, Annabel didn't touch the vial again. She left it sitting on the table like a question mark. Clear. Cold. Waiting. She didn't sleep. She waited for footsteps, for eyes in the dark, for the sound of her door creaking open. But it was her phone that buzzed instead. A message. No name. Just an address inside the mansion and a time, 1:15 a.m. Annabel stared at the screen. Then, without a word, she slipped on her robe and moved silently through the corridors. She already knew how the mansion worked, where the cameras blinked, which floors creaked. The room was behind the study, a hidden door tucked behind a shelf of books. When she pushed, It gave easily. Inside, Jahan stood at the far end of a dimly lit space. A single desk lamp illuminated papers scattered across the table. He looked up when she entered. "You came," he said simply. "I was curious." He nodded once. "Curiosity is dangerous here. So I've been told." Repeatedly. Jahan didn't smile. He gestured to the documents on the desk. Old letters, ledgers, property records, even photos. Annabel stepped closer, scanning quickly. Accident reports, surveillance stills, receipts, medical files with redacted names. "You're not just faking illness," she said slowly. "You're investigating something." "I'm watching them," he said. "They think I'm too weak to fight. Too stupid to notice. Your aunt wants you dead." "I know." Annabel blinked. "You know." He turned away from the table and walked to a cabinet. He pulled out a box. Inside, dozens of small glass vials. Exactly like the one Mayan had given her. "She's been trying to poison me since I was 19. Low doses. Different maids, different teas. I learned fast." Annabel stared at him, stunned. "And the wives? They weren't weak. They were scared. Some tried to help me. Most were silenced before they could. You let them think you were dying. I needed time. If they think I'm fading, they get bold. They slip, and I catch them." Annabel crossed her arms. "So why marry me?" Jahan looked at her directly. "Because you were the first one who didn't come begging. You didn't cry. You walked into this house like you were hunting something. I was." They stood in silence. Then Annabel pulled the vial from her robe pocket and placed it on the table between them. "She gave me this today." Jahan looked at it, unimpressed. "You going to use it?" "No," Annabel said. "But I'm not here to save you either." He nodded. "Good," he said. "Because I don't need saving." Annabel stepped back. "Then what do you want from me?" Jahan's eyes held hers. "A partner." Annabel didn't answer Jahan that night. She left the hidden room without a word, her mind louder than anything he could have said. A partner. Not a wife. Not a puppet. A partner in a war she hadn't asked for, but was already bleeding into. By morning, the house was too calm. The staff moved like they knew something, as if whispers had passed between rooms faster than light. Maybe they had. The mansion breathed secrets. At breakfast, Jahan didn't show up. Only Aunt Mayan sat at the table, sipping tea that Annabel now recognized, the same dark blend, with that floral bite and something sour beneath it. Mayan looked up with a soft smile. "No appetite today, Annabel." "I'm more careful these days," Annabel replied. Mayan's smile didn't crack. "Care is good. Distrust, though? That's dangerous." Annabel didn't flinch. "Only for liars." There was a flicker in the older woman's eyes, but she didn't respond. She merely dabbed her lips with a napkin and stood. "Come with me," she said. Annabel followed, curious but cautious. They walked to a smaller drawing room she hadn't seen before. Inside, Uncle Hyun-suk sat waiting, a drink already in hand, eyes on the window. Unlike Mayan, he didn't force a smile. He just waved his glass lazily. "Finally decided to meet the new bride," he said. "Welcome to the real side of the house." Annabel remained standing. Hyun-suk gestured to the seat across from him. "Don't worry. I'm not here to poison you. That's my sister's hobby, not mine." Mayan chuckled softly in the background, but said nothing. "What do you want?" Annabel asked plainly. Hyun-suk leaned forward. "To give you another option. You see, my dear niece, if that's what you prefer to be called, you're standing in the middle of a battlefield. My sister wants the company. Jahan wants revenge. But what do you want?" Annabel raised an eyebrow. "And you?" "I want control. But I'm realistic. Jahan's still the legal heir, sick or not. Unless, of course, something changes." Annabel didn't blink. "I assume this is the part where you bribe me," she said. Hyun-suk laughed. "Bribe? No. Incentivize." He reached into a drawer and pulled out a slim, black card. "Use this for anything. No limit. It's registered in your name. Just stay close to Jahan. Make him trust you. And when the time comes, you'll help steer him where I need him to go." Annabel stared at the card, then took it. "Interesting offer," she said. "I'll think about it." Hyun-suk smiled. "That's all I ask." Later, alone in her room, Annabel placed the black card beside the vial from Mayan. 2 different promises, 2 different traps, and in the middle of both her. Everyone wanted something. But now it was time she started playing them. 3 days later, Annabel entered the auction house in Apgujeong like she'd been walking through doors like that all her life. She wore black, sharp, simple, elegant, with no jewelry except a tiny gold pin Jehun had sent her that morning. A lion's head. No note. No explanation. Just a symbol. It was enough. The crowd inside was the usual. Old money, new sharks, power dressed in silk. Cameras clicked softly in the background. Every gaze that landed on her held the same question. Who is she? They'd learn soon enough. The auction was for a package of distressed properties once owned by her family, land seized years ago after a scandal that destroyed everything her father had built. And now, somehow, these assets had found their way into Jehun's family's reach. Coincidence? No such thing in this house. Aunt Mayan sat in the front row with her daughter, Mina, whispering behind a fan. Uncle Hyun-suk stood at the back, flanked by 2 lawyers. Neither of them had expected Annabel to show up. Alone. She took a seat in the middle, not front, not back. Just visible enough to be noticed. When bidding began, it was swift and ruthless. 2 of Jehun's cousins went head-to-head for the first lot. Laughter floated through the room. Most bidders didn't even look at the items. They just wanted the win. But when the 3rd package came up, her family's land, Annabel raised her hand. 2 billion won, she said. The room stilled. Mayan twisted in her seat. Hyun-suk's drink paused midair. The auctioneer blinked. Bidder number 46. Noted. A second later, Mina raised her own paddle. 2.5. Annabel didn't hesitate. 3. Gasps echoed. People turned fully now, craning to see the young black woman who had just shifted the room. Mayan whispered something harsh to Mina, but the girl ignored her. 3.2. Annabel raised the black card, the one Hyun-suk had given her. 4 billion. This time, even the auctioneer hesitated. Bid confirmed, bidder number 46. 4 billion won. Mayan stood now, eyes sharp. On what authority is she allowed to bid? A murmur passed through the room. Annabel stood slowly. Calm. Clear. She's bidding on the authority of the Jeong family, came a voice behind her. Jehun. He stepped forward, hands in his pockets. No tie, no pretense. She's my wife, and the land originally belonged to her family. So she's reclaiming what's hers. Any problem with that? No one answered. Mine sat down. The gavel fell. Sold. As they exited, Jehun said nothing. Neither did she. But just before they reached the car, he paused beside her. You didn't have to do that. I know, she said. I wanted to. And for the first time, Jehun smiled, not out of amusement, but respect. The hunter had found his match. The news broke before they even reached the mansion. Who is Jeong Jehun's mysterious wife? Nigerian beauty stuns at Seoul auction. Lion heir breaks silence on 6th marriage. Annabel scrolled through the headlines on her phone, each one spinning a different story. Some praised her elegance. Others called her a gold digger. No one could agree on who she was, which meant, for now, she still had the advantage. Jehun sat beside her in the back seat, watching the city blur past. You didn't just make a statement today, he said. You declared war. Annabel didn't look away from her screen. On whom? He turned slightly, resting one arm over the back of the seat. Everyone. She finally met his eyes. You stood beside me. I meant what I said. You're my wife. Is that still part of the cover? He didn't answer right away. Then, softly, it used to be. They didn't speak the rest of the ride. When they arrived back at the mansion, the staff were lined up at the entrance, bowing deeper than before. The maids didn't smile with pity anymore. They lowered their eyes. Respect. Or fear. Maybe both. Inside, Grandfather Jean was waiting in the main hall. Sharp suit, cane in hand, gaze like steel. Annabel had only seen him once before, from a distance. Now he studied her fully. You caused quite a stir, he said. Annabel bowed. I was only protecting what belonged to my father. He nodded once. Good. A Jeong wife should have teeth. He turned to Jehun. Your choice was unexpected, but it may not have been wrong. With that, he walked away, leaving behind approval wrapped in cold authority. Later, as she climbed the stairs, Mina cornered her by the landing. "You think you've won something?" Annabel didn't slow. "I don't think. I know." Mina hissed. "You're just a distraction. He'll drop you like the others." Annabel turned fully, then eyes calm. "I'm not here to be remembered. I'm here to be in charge." Mina's face paled. For the first time, she had no reply. That night, Jihun knocked on her door. Not like the first night, not to threaten. He stepped in quietly and held out a phone. "Watch this." It was security footage from the auction house, Mayan, minutes after they left, screaming at her daughter. "You let that girl humiliate us." Jihun tapped the screen. "They've turned on each other." "You sped it up." Annabel handed the phone back. "You're welcome." He smiled, a small one. "You're not like the others." "I'm not trying to be." He looked at her a moment longer, then nodded. "I won't hide you anymore." Annabel blinked. "You were hiding me?" "Until I was sure." "And now?" Jihun's voice was quiet. "Now I want them to see you, standing beside me." Annabel didn't sleep that night. Not out of fear. That feeling had long passed. But because Jihun's words kept looping in her mind. "Now I want them to see you, standing beside me." It hadn't sounded like strategy. Not fully. It had sounded like something else. Like belief. By morning, she was waiting in the library, a thick robe wrapped around her shoulders and a black notebook in her lap. Jihun found her there without needing directions. He held a small metal key in one hand. "No cameras in the basement archive," he said. "Only I have the key." Annabel stood. "What's down there?" "Records. Files my aunt and uncle wanted hidden. Some of them about my parents." She followed him down 2 floors, past silent halls and blinking red sensors, until they reached a narrow metal door at the end of a forgotten corridor. Jihun unlocked it, and the lights flickered on inside, dim yellow, untouched. He motioned toward the far cabinet. "Start there." They worked in silence, combing through old financial records, handwritten letters, therapy files, appointment logs. Most of it was dry, boring even. But then Annabel pulled out a manila folder that had no label. Inside were photos, a wrecked car, crumpled beyond recognition, police reports, a bloodstained scarf, then something that didn't belong, a map marked with an X over a sharp curve outside Seoul. Jihun stared at it. "My parents died there. Supposedly lost control on a rainy night." Annabel flipped through the pages again, more carefully this time. "There's a note here from the mechanic," she said. Brake fluid was low, but the car had just been serviced the day before. Jihun clenched his jaw. They said it was wear and tear. But this says the lines were cut, quietly noted in the report, and ignored. Annabel looked up. This wasn't an accident. He didn't move, didn't blink. Then he reached into the cabinet again, pulling out a dusty ledger. He flipped through until he found a date that matched the week of the crash. Hyun-suk was in charge of the company's logistics back then, he muttered. He signed off on the car's release. Annabel closed the file. "He's the one who suggested you keep playing sick." Jihun nodded slowly. "If my parents died by accident, I was next in line. But if someone helped, they needed me alive. Until they didn't." Annabel touched his wrist. "They're getting desperate now. That's why they're moving faster. That's why they tried to use me." Jihun finally looked at her. "I want the truth, but I need someone I can trust beside me when it drops." "You already know the answer," she said. "You just needed to hear me say it." He held her gaze, then said quietly, "I do." The morning after their discovery in the archive, Jihun skipped the usual routine. No quiet breakfast, no polite nods, no forced smiles. Instead, he walked into the family boardroom with Annabel at his side and dropped a file onto the polished table. Mayan, Hyun-suk, and 3 company advisors were already seated. They weren't expecting him. Or her. The room tensed. "What's this?" Hyun-suk asked, brows raised. Jihun took the head seat. Annabel remained standing. "Shareholder restructure," he said flatly. Mayan laughed. "You don't have the votes." Jihun opened the folder and slid it across to one of the advisors. "I do now." Inside were signed proxies, small shareholders, silent ones, loyal to grandfather Jean but long ignored by the family. Over the past 2 weeks, Jihun and Annabel had quietly bought influence, one name at a time. Hyun-suk's smile faltered. Annabel spoke for the first time. A vote can be arranged today. Or, we can wait and do it publicly. Silence. Maya narrowed her eyes. You're bluffing. Jihun didn't flinch. Try me. The oldest advisor, Mr. Kong, the one who had served Jihun's father, leaned forward. I've seen the numbers, he said. It's legitimate. Jihun holds 47% now, and his wife holds an additional 8%. Combined, that's 55%, Annabel added. Enough to freeze out any vote you try to call behind our backs. Mayan's hands curled around her teacup. This is illegal. Hyun-suk scoffed. It's smart. Annabel watched him carefully. He wasn't angry, not the way Mayan was. He was calculating, which meant he wasn't finished. Let's be civil, Hyun-suk said after a long pause. No need for family blood to spill over power. We can find a compromise. Jihun leaned back in his seat. There's no compromise with murder. That stopped everything. Hyun-suk's face went blank. Mayan stiffened. Jihun didn't elaborate. He didn't need to. Annabel dropped a smaller folder on the table. Inside were copies of the mechanic's note, the map, and the service logs, enough to raise suspicion. Enough to light a fire under anyone watching. You've pushed long enough, she said calmly. Now we push back. No threats. No shouting. Just truth. Jihun stood. This isn't a negotiation. It's a transition. He left without another word. Annabel followed. In the hallway, Jihun didn't speak until they were alone again. You played that perfectly, he said. You didn't blink. She glanced at him. You didn't ask me to. He stopped walking and looked at her. You were never just a shield, he said. You're the sword. Annabel gave a quiet smile. Then point me where it hurts most. He did. And from that moment, the Jeong house would never be the same. 3 days after the boardroom shift, headlines changed tone. Power couple, or house of cards. Inside the sudden rift between Jihun and his sixth wife. Annabel missing from public appearances. Trouble in paradise. Exactly as planned. Annabel sat at the edge of the courtyard, phone buzzing nonstop beside her. She let it ring. Every call came from someone fishing for a story. Tabloids, gossip blogs, even distant relatives. She ignored them all. Jihun stood on the balcony above her, giving the press just enough, a stiff expression, a deep sigh, the absence of his wedding ring. Just a glimpse. But that was all the public needed. The image of unity they built? Cracked. The illusion of fracture? Designed. And still it burned. That evening, they staged the argument. Loud voices in the hallway. Accusations. A shattered glass on the marble. Doors slammed with just enough force to echo. Most of the house watched through barely open doors. By midnight, the entire family believed the sixth wife had finally lost her place. In their bedroom, Jihun closed the window and sat on the edge of the bed. They took the bait. Annabel remained by the door, arms folded. They'll move soon, she said. They think I've been pushed out. He nodded. That's when they're careless. Silence stretched between them. Was it believable? She asked. He looked at her. Too believable. She turned away, unsure if it was the lie or the truth in his tone that unsettled her. A knock came at the door, soft, deliberate. It was Mina. Annabel opened it without expression. Yes. Mina stepped in, smug. Rough day. Annabel said nothing. I'm only here to help, Mina continued, voice sugar-sweet. Some people don't survive long after they lose Jihun's protection. You might want to start planning ahead. She slid a small envelope into Annabel's hand and turned to leave. Once the door shut, Annabel opened it. Inside was a single photo, Jihun at a hotel bar, alone, drink in hand. The timestamp was from an hour ago. They're trying to separate us, she said. They already think they've won, Jihun replied. That's what we need. He looked up at her. Can you handle being hated? Annabel stepped closer, slipping the photo into the fireplace. The edges curled and blackened as flames took hold. Being underestimated is better, she said. Let them think I'm broken. The fire crackled. The plan burned to life. By the next morning, servants gossiped in every corner. Annabel had been locked out of Jihun's room. Jihun had canceled a joint interview. Aunt Mayan was suddenly very curious about Annabel's state of mind. The house was shifting again, and this time, Annabel wasn't playing defense. She was drawing them out. Annabel didn't have to wait long. By the second day of the breakup, a soft knock came at her private sitting room. The door opened before she could answer. Mayan, perfectly dressed, serene as always, carrying a small lacquer tray with 2 teacups and a delicate porcelain pot. "I thought you might want company," she said, gliding in like she owned the air. Annabel said nothing, only sat up straighter on the couch. Mayan poured the tea with practiced grace, then handed Annabel a cup. "You must feel so isolated. Men like Jehun are difficult, cold, even to the women who love them." Annabel accepted the tea, but didn't drink. Her fingers curled loosely around the porcelain. "Seems like you know him well," she said. "I raised him," Mayan replied softly. "I know exactly what kind of man he is." Annabel looked her in the eye. "And what kind is that?" "The kind that destroys everything he touches." A beat passed between them. Mayan leaned forward. "I want to help you. Truly. You've been strong for long enough. Let someone else carry the burden." Annabel tilted her head, slightly. "By giving me tea." Mayan's smile never cracked. "A calming blend. You used to take it, remember? At the beginning." Yes. Annabel remembered. That first morning. The sweet-smelling cup. The strange taste. The warning from the maid. She raised the cup slowly, eyes on Mayan, then paused, just before the rim touched her lips. "What's in it?" Mayan's lashes lowered slightly. "Herbs. For clarity. For peace." Annabel swirled the liquid. "Or for forgetting." Mayan's smile thinned. "If I wanted you dead, dear, you'd already be." "No," Annabel said quietly. "You want me broken first." She set the cup down, untouched. For the first time, Mayan's expression wavered. "You've changed," she said. Annabel leaned in. "No, I just stopped pretending I hadn't noticed." A moment of silence. Tense. Then Mayan rose, smoothing her skirt. "You should be careful," she said. "This house eats women who think they're smarter than it." Annabel stood too, stepping closer. "I'm not smarter," she said. "I'm just not afraid of being eaten anymore." Mayan stared at her, expression unreadable. Then she turned and left, tray untouched. The door clicked shut. Annabel exhaled slowly. Her hands weren't shaking. Her mind was clear. She poured the tea into the sink. The leaves at the bottom turned dark red. She didn't flinch. Later that night, she found Jehun on the rooftop. "She tried again," she said simply. He didn't ask how she knew. Instead, he looked at her with something heavier than approval. "She's panicking," he said. "She's running out of time." Annabel nodded. "Then let her rush. People who panic always slip. And when she slips, Annabel would be ready. Not with revenge. With proof." The Jiang mansion glittered with polished silver and silk drapes as guests poured in for Grandfather Jin's 85th birthday. Every room had been transformed, chandeliers lit, soft music played, and crystal glasses clinked over practiced laughter. Annabel stood at Jehun's side in a burgundy dress, her expression unreadable. Whispers followed them through the hall, but this time, no one dared speak too loudly. Not after the auction. Not after the restructuring. Still, the tension ran beneath every greeting. Mayan hovered nearby in a pale blue hanbok, smiling too much. Her daughter, Mina, circled the room with a glass in hand, avoiding eye contact. Uncle Hyunsuk was unusually quiet, watching everything but saying nothing. The performance was in full swing. At the head table, Grandfather Jin sat upright, came beside him, eyes sharp despite his years. When Jehun approached, he gave a short nod of approval. "You've been busy," he said. "I've been awake," Jehun replied. Beside him, Annabel bowed slightly. Jin's gaze landed on her, not soft but less sharp than before. "You're not afraid of any of them, are you?" "No, sir," she said calmly. He gave a satisfied grunt. "Then let them be afraid of you." As the dinner progressed, wine flowed freely. Annabel watched every glass, who poured, who drank, who didn't. Mayan approached toward the end of the meal, holding 2 flutes of white wine. She handed one to Jehun, the other to Grandfather Jin. "A toast," she said, voice light, "to legacy and peace." Annabel stepped in smoothly, taking Jehun's glass from his hand. "Let me." He blinked once but didn't resist. She raised the flute. "To family." She drank it all in one motion. The room went still for just a breath too long. Mayan's eyes twitched. Annabel smiled. Delicious! Jihun reached for a second glass from another tray and raised it without hesitation. To truth, he said. They clinked glasses. 10 minutes later, as the dessert was being served, Jihun swayed slightly, then collapsed. Gasps rose around the room. Chair scraped. A glass shattered somewhere. Annabel dropped to her knees beside him, shouting his name. Jihun! Mayan stood frozen. Mina grabbed her mother's arm, but Mayan didn't move. Someone call a doctor, a cousin screamed. Jihun's eyes fluttered shut. Annabel pressed her hand to his chest, felt the slow, steady beat beneath it. He was acting. Every detail rehearsed. Still, her voice cracked the way they'd practiced. He's not breathing. Staff rushed in. Someone tried CPR. Another called for an ambulance. And in the chaos, Mayan finally took a step back. Just one, right into the trap. Annabel looked up, locking eyes with her. Got you. The ambulance arrived within minutes. Staff parted like waves. Mayan stood frozen, lips pressed tight, eyes flicking between Jihun's still body and the chaos unfolding. Her hands trembled, barely visible at her sides. Annabel knelt beside Jihun as paramedics loaded him onto a stretcher. Please, she said softly, tears in her voice, real or not, even she wasn't sure anymore. Save him. They nodded, wheeled him toward the entrance. She followed, one hand pressed over her chest. As they passed the main hall, Jihun's eyes opened. Only she saw it. A slow, calculated blink. He was fine. The plan had worked. An hour later, with most of the guests gone and panic echoing in every hallway, Jihun returned to the mansion. Alive, walking, straight-backed, and no longer pretending. He entered the main hall with Grandfather Jean at his side and Annabel close behind. His suit jacket was gone, his shirt sleeves rolled up. No one had seen him like this before, raw, exposed, in control. Everyone still inside the mansion gathered at once. Hyun-suk, Mayan, Mina, the inner circle. Jihun didn't wait. He dropped a stack of papers onto the table at the center of the room. Surveillance footage, audio recordings, lab results from the wine glass. Mayan's face drained of color. The wine was laced with phenobarbital, Jihun said calmly. Enough to knock out a healthy adult for hours. Grandfather Jean narrowed his eyes. You faked your collapse. Jihun turned to him. Yes, because I needed to see who would react and who wouldn't. He pointed at the footage playing on the screen behind him. Mayan, standing still as a statue while her supposed nephew was unconscious. Mina, pulling her mother back when she didn't move fast enough. Annabel stepped forward. And before you deny it, she said to Mayan, let's not forget the vial you gave me, or the photo Mina tried to use against me. She placed another envelope on the table. Inside, voice recordings, financial transfers, and the mechanic's note from the night of Jihun's parents' crash. Hyun-suk remained silent, eyes narrowed. Mayan turned to him slowly. You said this would never reach him. Hyun-suk didn't reply. Jihun looked between them. You had my parents killed. You tried to kill me. You poisoned 5 women and thought I'd be the 6th casualty. He turned to Grandfather Jean. You always said I needed to prove I was ready. Well, I have. Jean stared at his grandson for a long, weighty moment. Then he nodded once. Mayan, he said, voice low but sharp. You're done. 2 men stepped forward. Silent. Efficient. Security. Mayan's lips parted, as if to argue, but nothing came. As she was led away, her eyes met Annabel's. Not with hatred, with fear. Jihun stood tall, Annabel beside him. And for the first time, the Jeong family stood quiet, because the masks were gone, and the real rulers had arrived. The morning after Mayan was escorted out, the mansion was quiet. Not the kind of silence filled with secrets, but a silence heavy with change. One that lingered in the halls, like the house itself was holding its breath. Annabel stood at the window of Jihun's study, watching the staff below move with unusual alertness. No more smirks, no side glances. The whispers had stopped. Respect had replaced suspicion. Jihun entered, tie in hand, eyes clearer than she'd ever seen them. She's gone, he said. Formally. Legally. Grandfather stripped her of all board authority. Annabel nodded. And Hyun-suk. He's quiet now. For a man like him, silence means fear. Jehun stepped closer, lowering his voice. But he's still dangerous. Which means we finish the cleanup, Annabel replied. No loose ends. He gave a small, tired smile. We're saying things out loud now. We have to. We're the ones in charge. There was a pause. Then Jehun held out a small red folder, thick, stamped with the Jeong seal. What's this? Your official appointment, he said. You're now co-chair of the Jeong Foundation. Effective today. Annabel opened the folder slowly. Inside, documents bearing her name, alongside Jehun's. Legal. Binding. Irreversible. You don't need to do this, she said, though her voice was already steady. I do, Jehun replied. You didn't just help me survive. You helped me win. I don't want a throne if you're not sitting beside me. Annabel looked up at him. He meant it. No more tests. No more tactics. Just truth. She signed. Later that day, they entered the boardroom together. No longer outliers, but leaders. The advisor stood. Jehun sat at the head. Annabel at his right. Effective immediately, Jehun said. We'll be restructuring leadership. No more empty titles. No more shadow figures. Annabel added. We'll review every property and account. If you've earned your place, you'll stay. If you haven't, step aside. No one argued. Not now. After the meeting, Grandfather Jean summoned them to the inner garden. A rare gesture. He sat in his usual chair, cane resting beside him, a single teacup in hand. I watched you grow, he said to Jehun. You were soft. Quiet. Not weak, but waiting. Jehun stood still. And you, he said, turning to Annabel. You walked into this house a stranger. You walk out as a pillar. He set the teacup down. I built this family. But now I give it to you. For a moment, Jehun didn't speak. Then, we'll protect it. And we'll rebuild it. But in our way. Grandfather Jean smiled faintly. Then I have nothing left to say. That evening, in the newly lit dining hall, Annabel and Jehun sat at the center table, no longer surrounded by suspicion. No one whispered anymore. They didn't have to. The true heirs had arrived, and this time they were ready. The following week was a blur of signatures, sealed envelopes, and quiet departures. Jehun moved through it like a man finally breathing clean air. He stripped down the board, dissolved 2 shell companies, and liquidated 3 properties Mayan had used to funnel money into shadow accounts. But for Annabel, it wasn't the meetings or the files that unsettled her. It was the letter. It came folded inside an old family photo album, no stamp, no sender. Just her name scrawled across the front in perfect Hangul. She opened it in their bedroom alone. Inside, a single sheet of paper. You may have one, but blood remembers. M. Mina. She hadn't been seen since Mayan's removal. Rumors said she'd left the country. Others said she'd gone underground. Annabel didn't believe either. That evening, she showed Jehun the letter. He read it twice, jaw tightening. She's not a threat, he said. Not yet. But she wants us to look over our shoulder, Annabel replied. That's her win. Jehun nodded. Then we cut the last thread. He meant the estate on the outskirts of Seoul, the one Mayan had insisted on keeping quiet. No servants. No cameras. Just silence. By morning, they were in the car together, heading down the winding road toward the old Jeong countryside villa. Annabel looked out the window, mind sharp. You think she's there? She asked. I think she's waiting. The villa loomed in the distance, beautiful, empty, untouched. The kind of place where people forgot the world. Inside, the air was stale. Jehun led her through the rooms one by one. Memories clung to the furniture like dust. And then the study. In the corner, a small fireproof safe hidden behind a false panel. Jehun opened it without hesitation. Inside were stacks of photos, a diary, and one final document. An alternate will, written years ago, naming Mayan as full executor in the event of Jehun's declared death. She was preparing for a world without you, Annabel said softly. He nodded. A world where she ruled. Annabel took the file and walked to the fireplace. She didn't ask. She dropped it in. The flames ate through the pages quickly. That was the last thread. Back at the mansion, they didn't speak much. The silence between them wasn't distance. It was release. The past had been messy, full of masks and knives in the dark. But now, the air felt different, lighter. Jahan stood at the balcony that night, arms folded. Annabel joined him, leaning into the space beside him like it belonged to her. "It's done," he said. Annabel nodded. "Family isn't who shares your name. It's who you build with." Jahan looked at her, and for the first time in his life, he felt free. 3 days after the villa was emptied and Mayan's last move turned to ash, the Jiang Foundation announced an emergency shareholders gathering. The official reason? Leadership realignment. The real reason? A new chapter was ready to be written, and Jahan wasn't the one holding the pen this time. Annabel stood before the mirror in their room, fastening the final button of her white silk blouse. Her hair was pulled back clean, her earrings modest. Nothing flashy, nothing borrowed. Power didn't need decoration. Jahan leaned in the doorway behind her, watching. "You're sure about this?" he asked. She met his reflection's gaze. "You handed me the co-chair seat. I'm not giving it back." A slow smile tugged at his lips. "Good. I wasn't planning to ask." The boardroom was full when they arrived, familiar faces, wary eyes. Hyun-suk's seat remained empty, permanently vacated. A few of Mayan's silent supporters looked uncomfortable but stayed seated. They were waiting to see what the new regime would look like. Jahan sat at the side. Annabel walked straight to the head of the table. There was a murmur. One of the advisors, Mr. Du, adjusted his glasses. "Is there a seating error?" Annabel set a slim file on the table, met his gaze directly. "There's no error. Effective today, I assume full operational leadership of the Jiang Foundation's External Investments Division and Family Welfare Arms. Jahan remains chair of Core Holdings. We are splitting authority." "Temporarily?" another asked. "No," Jahan said, voice calm. "Permanently." A pause. Then Annabel continued. "Under my management, we'll shift toward impact development, education, healthcare, real community ownership." A few faces lit up. Others frowned. One woman at the far end raised a hand. "With respect, Madam Jiang, you were a late addition to this family. Some of us wonder if you understand how deep the roots run here." Annabel smiled. Calm sharp. "I'm not here because of roots. I'm here because of what I built. Because I survived this house, stood against its old rules, and rewrote them. That's deeper than roots. That's foundation." Jahan said nothing. He didn't need to. The silence around the table spoke enough. And then, Grandfather Jean entered. He moved slowly but with purpose, cane tapping rhythmically. He looked once at Annabel, then took the final seat. "Let the new era begin," he said. That evening, a new plaque was installed on the office door in the East Wing. Chairwoman A. Jiang. She didn't ask for it. She didn't wait for applause. She walked into the room, opened her laptop, and began. Power wasn't about inheritance. It was about intention. And she had plenty of that. The plaque on her door was barely a week old when Annabel asked to see the ledger from 5 years ago, the one listing every terminated staff member during Mayan's control. Jahan blinked when she requested it. "You want names?" he asked. "I want stories," she replied. The file came the next morning, thick with names of maids, drivers, kitchen staff, gardeners, people quietly dismissed, many without cause. No compensation, no explanation. Annabel sat with it for hours. She circled 23 names. By evening, she had addresses for 11 of them. Jahan found her sitting in the lounge, coat folded over her arm. "You're going to visit them?" he asked. She nodded. "They lost their homes because of his family. Some of them haven't recovered. If I'm going to lead, I have to fix what we broke." Jahan leaned against the doorway, watching her. "Most people in power forget the people below them." "I was never below them," Annabel said. "Just quieter." She left without an entourage. Just a driver in her own words. The first visit was to an elderly man in Goyang, once a gardener at the estate. He opened the door with surprise and confusion. He didn't recognize her at first. But when she bowed and said, "I'm here on behalf of the Jiang family," his eyes filled with something close to anger. Or grief. Maybe both. "I was told not to speak," he said. "Told I was a liability." Annabel nodded. "I'm here to listen instead." He invited her in. They sat in silence for several minutes before he spoke again, about how Mayan accused him of stealing, about how no one believed him, about how his pension vanished. When he finished, Annabel opened a folder and slid a sealed envelope across the table. Inside, a formal apology, a reparation payment, and an invitation to return, not to work, but as an advisor to the estate's garden restoration project. His hands trembled as he held the letter. "Why now?" he whispered. Annabel smiled softly. "Because the house has changed, and because you deserve to hear sorry from someone who means it." She visited 4 more homes that week. A chef who was falsely accused of leaking recipes. A maid who was blamed for a fire she didn't start. A young man who was dismissed for being seen talking to Jihun too casually. She spoke with all of them, not like a chairwoman, but like a woman cleaning the blood off a house that had taken too much from too many. That night, Jihun waited in their room with dinner already served. "How was it?" he asked. Annabel sat beside him, tired but calm. "Hard," she said, "but necessary." He reached for her hand. "You're doing what none of them ever did." "I'm doing what they were afraid of," she said. "Which is making things right." The rain started just after midnight. Not heavy, just soft enough to tap gently against the windows, like it didn't want to interrupt. Annabel stood in the hallway outside the last room they hadn't spoken about. The one across from the study. The one Jihun always kept locked. She held the key now. He had given it to her 3 days ago. No explanation. Just handed it to her as he walked past her in the hall. Now, she finally turned the lock. Inside was silence. No dust. No furniture. Just photos lining the walls. Jihun's parents. Younger versions of Mayan. Old company ledgers. Newspaper clippings, both praise and scandal. At the center of the room was a single chair facing the wall. Annabel stepped in quietly. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. She sat. When Jihun entered, he didn't ask why she was there. He just stood by the door, watching her take it all in. "You kept this place untouched," she said after a long moment. "It reminded me where everything started." Annabel looked at him. "And where did it end?" He stepped further inside. "Right here." She turned in her seat. "All this time," she said, voice steady, "we built together. We fought together. But we never stopped pretending." Jihun didn't move. Pretending what? That we were just allies. That this was only survival. He met her eyes. "Wasn't it? It stopped being survival the moment you stood beside me at that auction. The moment I let you fall in front of everyone at your grandfather's birthday. The moment you looked at me and stopped seeing a 6th wife." He exhaled. "Then, I never saw a wife. I saw something I thought I'd never deserve." Annabel stood. "Say it." Jihun took a step closer. "I love you." Her breath caught. "I should have said it when you drank that poison wine," he said. "Or when you gave back land that should have been yours. Or when you walked into a room full of men and didn't flinch." Annabel's voice softened. "Why didn't you?" "Because I didn't want it to be part of the game." She nodded slowly. "But the game is over now." He closed the space between them. "Yes, it is." She touched his face gently. "Then no more pretending." He kissed her, not desperate, not uncertain, but full of every unspoken truth that had built between them. The war hadn't broken them. It had carved them into leaders, into partners, into something real. Later that night, they lay beneath soft sheets, the rain still tapping quietly on the windows. Annabel rested her head on his chest. "Do you think they'll come for us again?" "Maybe," Jihun said. "But we're ready now." "No more pretending," she whispered. "No," he agreed. "Just us. And for the first time in a house built on secrets." Love spoke louder than silence. Thank you so much for staying with us till the very end of the story. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and leave a comment below. We'd love to hear the lessons you learned and your thoughts on how we can continue improving to give you the very best. Here at Moonlit Stories, every tale is crafted with passion, care, and dedication. Our mission is simple: to entertain, inspire, and connect us all across cultures and hearts. So, keep the conversation alive in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new episode. Till next time, we are Moonlit Stories, bringing you amazing tales that touch hearts and spark imaginations. Stay blessed. Stay inspired. See you in the next story.